Hello everyone, Phreak here, and welcome to part 6 of my Runes Reforged rundown. This will probably be the last one I do for a short time because there's not much else to cover in patch 7.22. I'm sure in a couple patches, maybe around 8.1, I'll go over some of this stuff again because there will probably be some significant changes, whether through buffs or nerfs, or maybe even new runes. I mean, Riot did say when this was getting developed that they would launch with about 60, but then maybe try to find a few more to add or replace, and so likely over time we'll have some more updates to provide, but until then this will be it for now. Anyway, we're going to be covering the inspiration tree, or path. I keep getting that wrong. They used to be masteries, now they're runes. It used to be trees, now they're paths. Anyway, if you don't know who I am, I'm a Diamond 3 level bot lane main. I'm a commentator for the North American pro scene, and I love theory crafting, so hopefully some of my feedback or advice or whatever is worthwhile. Let's talk about runes in the path called Inspiration. And which one am I going to break? We'll break Knife Cat. We're going to remove this one. We're just going to make it an Inspiration tree path. And okay. When you go Inspiration Primary, it's not doing it. Wait, hold on. Oh, there we go. If you go Inspiration Primary, you actually get the benefit of the secondary path that you take, with two differences. One, no matter which one you pick, you get 20% potion and elixir duration. You also get a slightly amplified version of whatever the stat was. Precision Primary, I believe, is 18% attack speed, and it becomes 20%. Domination becomes 16 AD or 27 AP instead of, I don't know, it's like 18 ability power, something like that. Sorcery becomes the exact same number. And Resolve becomes 145 health instead of 130 health. So there's benefits to be had, quite obviously. You get elixir duration, potion duration, and you get some extra H. You get some extra of whatever the stat was, and usually to the tune of about 10 to 15%, sometimes a bit more though. An Inspiration is the path full of generally pretty zany and different and just sort of odd mechanics. It's subtitled somewhat Breaking the Game. It's outwit mere mortals, creative tools, and rule bending, right? It's ways to sort of break the game and do funny things. What's interesting is a lot of these runes can actually be tied specifically to gold values, which makes them somewhat easy to math out, which is kind of funny. Sorry, excuse me. So anyway, what I wanted to do is I guess start breaking down what these runes are and what they can do. So the first one up is probably the zaniest rune in the entirety of this game, and it's Unsealed Spellbook. Basically, at 2 minutes and every 6 minutes after that, you can replace one of your summoner spells with a different summoner spell. All of your summoner spells always have 20% cooldown reduction, so your TP goes from 5 minutes to 3 and change, and your smite or whatever, or ignite, goes down similarly. With a caveat that you have to start with smite to buy a smite item. Otherwise, you inherit whatever the cooldown of the slot was. I never actually got to test whether you could have like TP and flash, switch your TP to ghost and switch your flash to teleport. And if your flash was like available and off cooldown, like would it be available as teleport right away? I never got to test that. I'm sure YouTube comments will let you know. So if you just read YouTube comments, someone will tell you whether that works or not, which is replacing an on cooldown summoner spell and then getting it back on your other slot because that slot was off cooldown, and if it comes back or not. I don't know that answer. Someone does, though. One thing I wanted to point out that at least I noticed, maybe this is slightly buggy or whatnot, but I tried Unsealed Spellbook with Smite, where I smited something at level 1, then recalled to base, then turned my Smite into a different spell. And the cooldown was based on my second or third, based on how you think about it, charge coming back. Because Smite, if you don't know, has charges, right? The actual Smite summoner spell has like a 15-second cooldown, but the charges come by every about 70 seconds. And so, you give a Smite at the start of the game, and then you Smite, and then your first one comes in like 30 seconds later, then your next one comes in 70 seconds after that. It was that 100-second cooldown that I got, not the 30-second cooldown. And that's what I felt happened to me when I played Unsealed Spellbook with Smite and then swapped it out later on into the game. One thing that people have talked about a lot with Unsealed Spellbook is, you get yourself a Smite item. But keep in mind that to use Red Smite or Blue Smite, you have to actually keep Smite, which means you can't trade out of Smite, you just keep Smite. So at that point, why bring Unsealed Spellbook if you're going to keep one of them for sure all the time? Um, you could also choose to go into green smite. Let's say you're playing Nunu, for example, right? You can go Unsealed Spellbook Nunu, smite for the beginning of the game, then say, well, I have Consume, let's just get green smite, which doesn't need smite, it just has wards on it, and then run Ghost Flash, or run Ignite, or whatever you want to take on Nunu, who cares? Cho'Gath jungle the exact same way. You don't need smite because you have Feast at a certain point. You can just run Ghost Flash Cho'Gath out of the jungle, and now you're Ghost Flash Cho'Gath. That's pretty good, right? You can become a top laner and run TP Flash. Who knows? But there's, fun things you do with that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of interesting situations. I want to talk about one more that I saw, which is playing an aggro champion in the top lane. And, let's say you're playing Kennen or Singed into a good matchup, and you run Ignite. And what's funny is, if you kill the guy with Ignite, like you go to the all-in, and because of Ignite, you win the trade. You get the kill, he's dead, first blood for you, 400 gold. Okay, well now you've got a 10-second timer to shove the wave into the turret and recall, because that guy's going to TP back to lane, and you're injured from the all-in. So you need to get away, you need to find a way to either have not used both summoners in the all-in, so that you can switch your second one out for teleport and get back to lane, because you're not going to go into lane with Ignite TP, that would be silly, I feel. It would be like Ignite Ghost, you get the all-in, and then you find a way back to lane. But because they can TP back to the lane, you need to make sure it's shoved or have your jungler around to keep the waves or the lane under control, and then maybe swap back for TP later on. And it's like, I don't think anyone's really found the right combinations yet for Unsealed Spellbook. I know I've seen it once in a while in solo queue, once in a while in sort of these side run tournaments, but I don't know if there's really like a good solid, like, yes, this is the build, you run Spellbook Fior for these summoner spells, and at 14 minutes you swap them, and then blah. Like, I haven't seen that yet, and I don't know, my instinct right now is Unsealed Spellbook is underpowered, and it's because I don't think you need the shard mechanic for this to be balanced. I think you could, and maybe I'm wrong here, and often I am about stuff, is you could just let the cooldowns police this entirely, and just say, yep, your TP's on cooldown for 3 minutes. Even if you swap it, you still can't use it. Whatever it turns into, Ignite, Ghost, Flash, who knows? And in my instinct, that's enough. I've played maybe 4 games of Unsealed Spellbook so far, and I've felt betrayed by the fact that I couldn't switch my summoners. Like, I wanted to play Red Smite Exhaust Tristana after using TP and Smite to get into the lane after stealing a red buff at level 1, and then I can use the red buff and level 2 power spike to do something else. And, theoretically, there's things you can do here, right? There's power spikes available, and I think it's going to be things like that. I think the way Unsealed Spellbook will be good will be like a 4-minute long sort of planned play where you can do a certain thing, and that's what it comes down to. Eventually, I think we'll get there, but I don't know where we are with that yet. Anyway, that's Unsealed Spellbook. That's my spiel on that one. It's very interesting, and I think eventually someone will figure stuff out, and that'll be cool. Next one up is Glacial Augment. Glacial Augment also, again, a bit tricky to use. Can be somewhat hard to do properly. Basically, it is a Frozen Mallet on a cooldown. Basic attacking champions is 2 minutes slow, or sorry, 2 seconds slow. The slow is basically always double the power for melee. It scales closer together by level 18, but very much more powerful for melee. And then also, if you use an active item like Spooky Ghosts or Randuin's Omen or Righteous Glory, you create an Iceborne Gauntlet sort of slow field. And 50% is a pretty high number. That's a pretty solid slow. I think the key users of Glacial Augment are champions that would actually get Frost Queen's Claim. The Spooky Ghosts would count for slow. The problem is Spooky Ghosts, their slow is usually pretty potent and pretty long duration anyway, and so you don't actually get the benefit on that champion. I think more of the primary users are champions who buy like Hextech GLP, and then you hope that like the slow field is big enough that it catches other people, but at the same time, so would Hextech GLP. You look at an item like Randuin's Omen, and it's like, okay, well that slows them for I think 1 second, and then are they off the slow field by that point? Well, they almost are, and it's just hard for me to find like the right use for Glacial Augment. And I know there's a couple out there, and I've forgotten by the time I've recorded this video who like the really good Glacial Augment users are. So I'm sorry for that one. I know there's people that I could actually suggest here that actually make good use of this, but for the life of me, I can't remember anymore, and I apologize for that. But it just ends up being like really hard to use. And one of the big things is Keystones have a lot of power in them. And so while I think Glacial Augment can be good and Unsealed Spellbook can be good, and the I do want to make sure I point out that Unsealed Spellbook has that permanent 25% Summoner Spell CDR, which is quite useful. But you're giving up something like Electrocute or Press the Attack or Phase Rush or all the other keystones. The opportunity cost is all of the other keystones you could use. Now, yes, you get 15 more health or 2% more attack speed or 6 more ability power to help make up for that. And that is the exclusive benefit you gain by getting a slightly less combat-oriented keystone. But that's kind of the limit. It feels like, the 6 ability power you get for forsaking Electrocute and getting Glacial Augment, I'm not sure is worth it. There are, I think, a few cases where this can be decent. Now that it's coming back to me a little bit, Echo can be pretty good with Glacial Augment, because when you auto attack someone, the slow field that you create kind of helps guarantee that your Q lands for both hits. Theoretically, I can see someone like Yasuo. I mean, obviously, Press the Attack is very good on Yasuo, but the 2-second long slow can help you get your second or maybe third Q off. But again, you are competing with damage-oriented keystones, and so you have to make up for the fact that you are missing out on that damage from Press the Attack or Electrocute or Predator or whatever else, which makes it pretty difficult to really choose one of these. The one that has found some purchase is Kleptomancy. Kleptomancy has actually done pretty well for itself. Basically, you now have a second Sheen. It triggers on the same things Sheen does. Cast a spell, land an attack. Cast a spell, land an attack. If the attack hits a champion, you get a bonus. If it hits a minion, you've consumed Sheen. Now, unlike Sheen, there's no bonus damage. Not listed in the tooltip or anywhere is the attack also gains 25 bonus range. So if you want to play Kleptomancy Darius, your W has 25 more range. That's a pretty small range increase. It's smaller than most other champions with range extenders, but theoretically, like Klepto Nasus gets bonus range on his Q. Even if he might not really want to run Klepto, he gets bonus range in his Q, which is really useful. And so when you look at win rates for Kleptomancy champions, and I've actually looked at internal data on this, Klepto is one of the top 3 keystones of Nasus. And the thing is, like, Nasus wants to queue minions all day, so it was like, wait, why is Klepto good? Because, I mean, yeah, you can fight champions, but it's like, well, you gain 25 range, and queuing champions is not bad. It's not garbage. It's fine. You can win lane that way, and it's 25 range in your on-hit effects. Okay, that's pretty good then, and I assume it works for ranged champions as well. I don't know for certain, but I'm going to guess so, and so theoretically, like, Misfortune hits W, and then can get a shot off sometimes. Again, the obvious auto attackers like Jax, Fiora, Darius, Nasus, these champions who like want to get that one hit off sometimes. Klepto can help you do that. Also, another thing I want to point out is the tooltip here slightly lies. I'm almost certain it is gold or a consumable. I think it can be both, but it's often one or the other. So you'll have games where you've looted 40 items and gained 30 gold, and you're like, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. Even though the Kleptomancy's item returns are random, they are bucketed. So basically, the things you get in the first 8 minutes-ish are different than the ones you get between 8 and 16. Different from the ones you get 16 plus. I don't know exactly what the buckets are, how big they are, or when they are. I just know that there are buckets. And I don't know any more than that, so that's the best information I can give you. Even though there is some degree of randomness to it, again, the list is somewhat small. Also, the items all scale with game time or champion level. Anything that would give you AD would also give you AP. I assume you probably can get mana potions as Yasuo, and that feels bad, but oh well. As long as your item slots aren't full, you can always sell your items. If your item slots are full, it automatically consumes it, though I've never seen something automatically consume a ward, even though wards can drop. And you can see there's a lot of rules around Kleptomancy, but they basically all work in your favor. They're all pretty player-friendly. Klepto definitely has some good users. Ezreal's a big one. Gangplank gets top 2 behind Grasp of the Undying. Fiora, it seems to be her number 1. Nasus, I talked about, is top 3. I think it's number 2. Sono's a big Klepto user, although Aerie is really close. And then with Aerie going to be nerfed in 723, Klepto maybe becomes number 1. Then Guardian becomes number 2. And also I know that the designers have talked about the fact that Klepto seems to have some really good users, and then no one else wants to touch it. And so, like, the mastery or the rune might get flattened a little bit so that, maybe much like how Frost Queens claim, right, you can get 10 gold, 10 gold, 10 gold, or 15 in this case, as opposed to, like, one every once in a while, maybe, getting a burst of it, it can stack up, it can, who knows. Maybe they're going to be changes to Kleptomancy. We'll talk about them if they happen. That's the best I can give you right now. Klepto to talk about more of the uses of it, basically they are champions who have, at worst, range parity. So again, we talked about Fiora. Fiora plays top lane. Fiora plays almost exclusively against melee champions. So every Q that ever hits a champion is going to Klepto. It's going to give her a red elixir. It's going to give her a health potion. It's going to give her a mana potion. Who knows what. It's going to give her 5 gold. It's always going to be good. And for Fiora, it is easier to trigger Klepto than it is Grass because it's every Q and not get in combat 4 seconds, then land Q. Also, the cooldown technically is shorter, so that's cool. And again, I want to point out that Kleptomancy, it's funny, it feels like an early game rune, right? It feels like it's supposed to be an early game rune, right? It's, in the landing phase, I'm against you 1-on-1, I'm trying to trigger it all the time, I'm playing Victor into Zed, I'm going to Q auto, it's going to be sick, I'm doing all these things. But because the consumables that get picked up off Klepto are automatically consumed with full items, if you fill your item slots and you're just in a team fight throwing out Qs as Ezreal, you're just like, pew, I just gained 17 attack damage. I gained 17 attack damage. That's really good. That's really good. So there's, I think there's definitely a market here for, and obviously we know Ezreal is a good user of Kleptomancy, but it does scale into the game pretty well. Also just like gold itself scales pretty well. Most games aren't going max items, so there's a lot of power here. Again, to talk about one more point about the kind of champions who use it, champions that have at least range parity, hopefully a range advantage, and this is, Victor into melee, Swain into melee. I've actually run into a lot of mid-range mages run this to try to find themselves, the trades with this one. I think it can betray you in certain ways, like if your on-hit effects apply really at really awkward times. For example, Misfortune Q, if you double up off of a minion, it'll consume on the minion and then it'll bounce on the champion, so you're not going to get it there. Yasuo, of course, his Q applies on the first champion struck, the first unit struck in the straight line. Fizz, I believe his Q does not apply on hits to the other things, it just simply applies the W passive, so I think you're safe with Fizz. Again, I don't think there's a ton of champions where Klepto is actually the best, but sometimes sample size can prevent us from actually knowing. Anyway, it's definitely the most interesting of the 3. All right, 17 minutes in, we've only covered keystones. Let's move on. Inspiration slot 1. Hextech Flash Traption. While your flash is on cooldown, you can now channel for 2-ish seconds and then blink at basically Flash's cooldown or Flash's range. Pretty short cooldown, but you can't use it in combat. I don't know if any of you have seen the YouTube videos, but champions like Kled and Sion, I don't know if it's Sion, I know Kled, can redirect. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's both. I'm almost certain it's both. Kled and Sion can redirect their ultimates with Hex Flash, which is really cute. I actually kind of like that. Also, you can get out of your own ultimate as Nocturne if you really wanted to, although why would you? But theoretically, you can troll people with that, I guess. There's a pretty big drawback, which is when your real flash is on cooldown, everyone can tell your summoner spell is Hex Flash, so everyone knows whether or not you have flash, which is definitely a hurt. And I actually really wish that it would just simply say the summoner spell is flash slash Hex Flash. Say that 4 times fast. Flash / Hex Flash. Oh, never again. So that you just knew both were options, but oh well, it's kind of whatever. There's another mechanic I want to point out that some people know about, which is that the way Rengar's passive works, which is the leap out of brush, he gets a quarter second roughly of breathing room when leaving brush to still leap. So basically he has extra range or extra time on using the leap passive. Now it's time, not distance. So if you stand on the corner of a brush and then charge Hex Flash and go boop, then you can leap. So you can basically flash 400 units out of the brush and then leap on someone. So Hex Flash gives Rengar 400 leap range if you can wait for it. Now again, this still takes you 2 seconds to plan. So they have to be sitting in a spot where you think they're going to be there in 2 seconds and then still be there in 2 seconds. It is not the easiest thing to do. Let's be very honest about this. But still cool if you can make it happen. I think this is another rune. And then 2 other things I want to bring up. This is the kind of rune that I think is going to be better in pro play than in solo queue. I've talked about this in several runes before, where I think pro play and solo queue, just generic normal games with your friends or ranked play or whatever, are just going to be different beasts. And Hex Flash is one of these runes where it's probably better in pro play than solo queue, because getting to be a jungler and just Hex Flashing over Raptor Wall and just ganking the mid laner and Lee Sin, right? Clear Raptors, Hex Flash over, ward hop behind, kick him into your mid laner. anytime you want. Anytime you want, you can always Hex Flash on the guy. Every time. Oh man. Playing some Leona mid, Hex Flash over the wall, suddenly you're in EQ range, and he's dead. Playing some Alistair, playing some Thresh, Hex Flash out of the brush, now your headbutt pulverized. Goodbye to your laning phase. Right? Like, if you have Hex Flash, you can now play at 400 like, every brush is now 400 range bigger. 400 units bigger, every brush. Because there could be an Alistair in it, and you could be flashing 400 range out of that brush. Have fun playing League of Legends against Mata. His headbutt pulverize is 400 more range now when it's clicked to a brush. Enjoy your life. Now, again, it still requires an Inspiration Secondary or Inspiration Primary, more likely Secondary, out of those champions, but it's the kind of thing that feels like it's totally usable. Maybe there's even some like invade pathing you can do as a jungler as well. Like, it's the kind of stuff where players will become creative, and if they're creative enough, I think they'll find uses. It's not an every game kind of thing. It's gonna be a strategy kind of thing. I don't expect like the meta Alistair build to be Hex Flash on everyone in pro or in solo queue, but I hope we get to see it some in pro play, and I think we will. So that's that dream. Biscuit Delivery is basically a laning phase rune. It is % missing health or missing mana restore. You'd be a bit surprised how often you can actually get away with or get meaningful usage out of chugging a potion at like 60 HP and then living, because this potion does regenerate you while in combat. It does stack with health potion regeneration, and so if you're going to get into scraps in the bot lane, you get your first one at 3 minutes, which is around the time everyone hits level 2. I mean, you look at like a Leona who's got like 700 health or something, if she does have biscuits. Let's think about this. She's going to go, 700 health. Okay, so that's 50% of that missing is like 90 or so. And so this is 90 health over, I think it's 15 seconds, plus the 150 over 15 seconds the regular health potion gives. And this is a meaningful amount of regeneration. You've gone from 10 to about 20 health per second on a champion who's practically invincible. Like, it's really not bad for that sort of... That sort of need, right? That in combat regen, maybe you stay alive. And look, it's not insane. It's not really that good. It's not like you win the game because you have biscuits. It is more regen than Second Wind, though, for those who were running that rune before. It's actually more than that. I mean, imagine if you did go Biscuit Delivery and Second Wind, it would be a lot of regen for those cases. The 40 max mana times 4 biscuits is worth 160 mana, which is worth 224 gold worth of mana if you really do want mana as a stat. I mean, you look at 224 mana and it's like, okay, if you're playing a Seraph's Embrace champion or a Muramana champion, I mean, 224 mana, like, I think Seraph's is 3% mana, so it's 6 AP out of Biscuit Delivery, which, I mean, 6 AP is not the worst. It's 6 AP, 200 mana, and, some extra sustain tools in lane. Like, that might be fine for Cassiopeia or Ryze. Or if you're playing Ezra with a Muramana and I think it's 2% mana to attack damage, that's, 4.5 AD. It's not a ton, but it exists. Unless my math is off, which I don't think it is. I did 220. Oh, I'm an idiot. It's 160 mana, 224 gold worth of mana. There we go. There's my brain. So yeah, your 160 mana, it's 3.2 AD. It's 4.8, I think, AP. Again, the numbers are smaller, but hey, it's there. So you should definitely, and again, it's enough where like you might think about it, right? The numbers aren't high, but they're enough to where they exist and are worth consideration when you look at a rune like Celerity, which I think is overpowered, and that one gives you 7 attack damage, 9 ability power, and this is about half that on the relevant users, and you're getting biscuits instead of move speed for the rest of it. And okay, hey, these are different thoughts now at this point, but not to be completely overlooked, basically this is a really, really good laning phase rune. I mean, you get 4 of these over 12 minutes, 1 every 3 minutes. You can sell them for, I think it's 30 gold a piece, roughly that, which is, I mean, roughly the cost of the mana you're getting from them. So hey, it's up to you. I don't know. It's an okay laning phase rune. That's what that is. Perfect timeline. My brain is not working. Perfect timing. Start the game with a commencing stopwatch that transforms into a real stopwatch after 6 minutes. Really, it's just at the 6 minute mark. It turns over. Stopwatch is a one-time use stasis effect, which is a one-time use Zonia's. It builds into and reduces the cooldown of Zonia's Hourglass, Guardian Angel, and Gargoyle Stoneplate. Want to point out that in my part 1 video, I got this wrong. It is worth 300 gold, not 600. If you buy a real stopwatch costs 600. This is worth 300 towards the combined. So it's still 300 free gold, and it's weird. It's worth 300 gold towards building an item, which means that once you have built your Zonias, it has saved you 300 gold. But also, it in itself is a 600 gold item because the one use Zonia's active is priced at 600 gold in the shop. Now, if you use your one use Zonia's active, it still turns into your real Zonia's Hourglass 600 gold later. But basically, if you are... Here's where I am actually on this right now, okay? Initially, I was like, yes, I'm going to go for this rune if I know I want to buy a Zonia's early, right? I'm playing maybe Echo or Kassadin or Kennen or something. You know, maybe I'm playing an attack damage jungler like a Lee Sin who might go Guardian Angel like right after Black Cleaver, like my third item is GA. Maybe I'm playing Kha'Zix or Rek'Sai, same kind of thing here. And that's fine. That's okay for that. But I think this is actually a better rune. Well, not necessarily better, but this rune is fine if you aren't planning on building these items. Because you get a one-time use Zonia's active, which is actually worth 450 gold. Let me tell you why. A kill is worth 300. An assisted kill is worth 450. If you live when you would have died in the team fight, this prevented the other team from gaining 450 gold. It also gained you the rest of the benefits from whatever happened because you lived. So if you can use this appropriately, this is worth 450 gold plus X. Now, in an average game, for an average user, they might not use it right, and they might screw up and not use it appropriately. Then it's not worth 450 gold on average. It's worth whatever percentage of the time you use it appropriately times 450 gold. But then once you use the item, you can then sell it for 120 gold? No, 180 gold. You get 40% brain, 120 gold. You get 40% of the 300 gold item. So you get 120 gold back for it. So it's either a 300 gold discount into an item you're going to buy, or it's 120 free gold, and your one-time active saved 450 gold, which is 570 gold, which is really good for a rune. That's an insane gold value. But you have to do it right. And that's the rub, is that you have to do it right. You have to be good to use perfect timing. I think most players can be very good, and especially if you are planning on doing a precision primary and getting Triumph here, because if it was a Triumph, then suddenly you've got yourself 15% missing health back after that kill. You dropped turret aggro because you stopwatched, and then you walk away. And you didn't give them that 300 gold kill, and you feel really freaking good at League of Legends. In fact, you can use your mastery emote while golden, which makes it worth even more gold. Not really, but it makes you feel great. You flash your mastery emote, you let them know you're great. So this really is a super, super nice rune to use. And even if you're not going to be buying Zonia's GA or Stoneplate, yes, the cooldown reduction is nice. Sure, it's great to have, but oh baby, if you are a true e-gamer, you should get perfect timing. I don't think there's a single champion it's actually bad on. Here's the thing. Even if you're never going to buy this item, like I know Gnar will buy a Stoneplate at some point, but imagine you're Gnar and you get Tower Dove, and then you Zonias, and then they die, and then you live. You don't have to do anything aggressive. You can just be Gnar, be Tower Dove, and just be annoying as hell. And there's a lot of things you can do with that, right? You can wait for cooldowns, etc., etc. I mean, it really is probably the most skillful rune in the game because Zonias is probably the most skillful item in the game. And it's really sick. I mean, really, I love this rune. It's probably one of my top 5 favorite runes in this as well. I talked about it with a couple of other ones on top of that, but I really do love this rune. It's pretty sick. Let's move on. Magical Footwear, aka free boots. I think this rune is very good, but still slightly overrated, but still incredibly good, okay? At 10 minutes, it is a free tier 1 boots, 300 gold worth of boots in your inventory. They also give you 10 bonus move speed, which has a gold value of 120 gold. It also gives you 50 free gold when you combine your boots, which means you buy Berserker's Greaves for 750, not 800. You buy Sork Shoes for 750, not 800. You buy Ionian Boots Lucidity for 550, not 600. Because of Magical Footwear, you're in a weird spot because you need to not need boots 1 for up to 10 minutes, but you want to be getting boots 2 as soon as possible because you want to abuse your move speed advantage. Like if you're getting this rune, you should be trying to almost always immediately pop boots 2. Right? This rune, when it activates, turns any given boots tier 2 into boots of swiftness, while also giving you stats. Because it gives you the same move speed that plain boots of swiftness would give you with a ninja tabby plus magical footwear. So if you were like, ooh man, I buy swifties on Jhin every game, it's like, but have you tried Berserker's Greaves magical footwear Jhin? It is the same move speed as going swifties, and the fact that you save 350 gold means it's actually cheaper than buying swifties, and you gain 35 attack speed. Like if I gave you a rune and said, hey, okay, you're going to play Jhin, okay? You're playing Boots of Swiftness Jhin, that's great. You're playing Boots of Swiftness Jhin. All right, at 10 minutes, gain 35 attack speed. You're like, what? That's insane. Okay, well, congratulations. That's magical footwear and buying Zerk Greaves instead of swifties. That's the rune, right? If you were ever going to buy Boots of Swiftness, you can run this instead, buy real boots, and you've just won League of Legends. By a lot. I mean, and you can look at any consideration, right? At 10 minutes, gain Ninja Tabby's passive and stats. Sorry, what? At 10 minutes, gain 25 MR and 30 tenacity. Are you high? Those are insane. So if you are in the market for buying swiftness boots, you can just go magical footwear and buy real boots, and it's insane. This is such a good rune, and this is why I'm saying it's one of the best runes in the game. And now I'm going to tell you why I think it's slightly overhyped. It is certainly very good. I'm not going to argue that it is best in slot in almost every champion in the average game. Sure. If you're playing an early ganker, though, if you're running Predator, for example, you shouldn't get this. Dear God, no. But the fact that, yes, okay, this rune is worth 470 free gold, okay? It's 350 for the free boots and the 50 gold combined cost reduction, and then 120 for the free move speed. This rune is worth up to 470 free gold. It's worth 420 when it turns on at 10 minutes, ha ha ha, and it's worth 470 when you save the 50 gold later on. Okay, that's very good. Yes, it is, absolutely. Now you'll note that is pretty close to the free gold you get out of Transcendence when you turn a Kindle Gem into a longsword, when you get, I think it's actually 420 gold worth of AD. So you can see those numbers suddenly become really close. Now, 10 minutes is before level 10. Let's be very, very real here. But magical footwear is worse than not having a rune for the first 10 minutes. Now, yes, of course, the boot pickup is 30 seconds faster every time you get a killer assist. Yes, it's going to be 8 minutes or 8.5 or 9 minutes on the average game. I don't know the exact number, but probably around then. But it is worse than not having a rune until then. Because, let's say you're playing Lucian in the bot lane, and you're going to go Essence Reaver into, I guess Static Shiv next item, and you get pushed out of lane, and you have, let's say you have 350 gold. And you have no potions left. You know it's a hard lane. You really want to buy potions. And it's like, well, I want to buy potions and I want to buy boots, but I can't. For every game that it would have been optimal to buy boots before 10 minutes, you cannot do it. And there are certainly games where the optimal buy was buying boots in the first 10 minutes. We've all played those games where we bought boots in the first 10 minutes, which means our brain said of all the choices we could have made, we chose to buy boots. In any game you have ever played where you bought boots in the first 10 minutes, you made the decision that the optimal choice to buy items at that point in time was boots. In every one of those games, you are no longer allowed to make that choice. And that's where it can be overrated. Not only because, again, it's obvious anti-synergy with running the Predator rune because you can't use it without boots, but also because any time you would have liked to go back on Yasuo, and it's like, yep, I want to buy Zeal boots, I can't. I can buy Zeal and a dagger, and I still have 340 move speed, or whatever the number actually is for Yasuo. Ooh, that's unlucky. Obviously, you can't run it on Cassiopeia. That's nothing for you there. All right, so that's why it's slightly overrated. Of course, though, still a very good rune. Futures Market, I think, is definitely better than people give it credit for. Futures Market is actually just free gold, okay? Don't think about the lending fee and the debt limit and these words like going into debt. It doesn't matter because you don't really have to pay back the loan, right? It's not like you're giving the bank payments every month afterwards and they're charging you interest or whatever. The lending fee comes in from the debt limit. And I talked about this in, I think, part 1 of the video where I ran over the runes overall. But at 2 minutes, you have 160 extra gold. Like, really, this rune is called you have 100, 200, 300 extra gold. This is basically a gold per 10 rune. But if you spend the gold, your gold generation slows down, right? At 2 minutes, you have 160 extra gold, period. And then even if you go into debt, you still have 110 extra gold. You go into debt again, you still have 10 extra gold. In a 30-minute game, you have 300 extra gold. And that's just, it's just there. It's just yours, right? That's, in a 30-minute game, you have earned, I guess 10 gold per minute, which I know doesn't sound very high, but it's concentrated towards the front. And something we've talked about before, and I think most of you are kind of aware of this, is completed items have a premium attached to them. For example, Infinity Edge, right? That 425 gold Infinity Edge combine is worth substantially more than 425 gold worth of stats. So imagine the difference between an 80 carry who has BF sword, pickaxe, and not even room for the Cloak of Agility, but he's got free boots, and the 80 carry who has an Infinity Edge. He just has an Infinity Edge. I take this one. And statistically, this rune doesn't have a very high win rate. In almost all cases, Magical Footwear has a higher win rate than Futures Market, because you have to try to use Futures Market. Like, for those of you who've actually played the game, how many of you have been like, I'm an idiot. I could have bought Trinity Force. I forgot. And I really do actually wish this just said your gold was this amount, right? It's like, yes, instead of having 500 gold, you have 800 gold. And just, it's, hey, by the way, you can go into debt. And I wish it would just like turn off the debt limit at a certain point, Like, I wish it would just say you get bonus gold, but the bonus gold goes away. I think it's just a cleaner implementation and much, much easier to use. And it's something that I'll probably go and on Monday, like, suggest it to the designers, like, to try to find a good implementation of this, because I really think Futures Market doesn't look as appetizing, and it's not winning as much because I think people aren't using it right, or they're scared of it. In both those cases, it is free combines, right? Imagine finishing a Bramble Vest versus having double cloth armor in lane. How much easier is that Tryndamere matchup when you actually have the Bramble Vest or the Fiora matchup? I mean, there really is a substantial difference here to just getting your combines off, and I really just do want to highlight that. I think the biggest users of this, by the way, are junglers and supports. I think junglers and supports are the ones who can most abuse item spikes. Like, for a support specifically, I mean, you have so little gold in the first place that the little bit you do get from Futures Market is actually a meaningful difference in your income. But it also means that, like, you can now get Sightstone on your first back when you couldn't before, because when you back at 6 minutes, you have 180 gold to spend extra. So when you have 620, that's a Sightstone. And after that, even after you pay back the lending fee, you still have more gold than before because your debt limit is 130. You still have 130 extra gold. So that next time when you finish Face the Mountain or buy that control ward you couldn't afford before, and yes, you can troll yourself over the course of time. You can keep spending into debt farther and farther and build yourself into a black hole of oblivion and get rid of all your money. Yes, you can screw up with Futures Market, but I mean, by and large, this is actually really quite nice. I really do wish it would just say, like, your debt limit contracts by 50 gold every time you use it, That way, it's the same numbers. It just doesn't feel as bad. Anyway, let's move on. Minion Dee Materializer. I have not yet found the sickest user for this rune just yet, mostly because it still fights buying free boots in Futures Market. But if you look at Futures Market being worth between 160 and, again, at 30 minutes where the average game ends 300 gold for your average end game. Yes, there's going to be an end game where it's worth 400, but that's very unlikely, obviously. if this is worth between 160 and 300 gold, from the start of the game to the end of your average game, this is worth about almost always 250 gold. And it's 250 gold pretty early on. In fact, it beats Futures Market to that 250 mark. Because Future Market gets to 250 at 20 minutes, you can dematerialize 6 cannon minions way before then. Basically, if you dematerialize 6 cannons that you would have missed, cannons are worth about 450 apiece, which means 270 is actually the number. Dematerializer, if you get cannons that you would have missed, is 270 gold. That's really good. And there's more to it than that, actually. There's more to it than just, oh, I got free gold. In high-level play, I talk about this when I stream a lot. For those who watch my stream, you'll actually know this one already. Every 3 waves, a cannon minion spawns, right? Every 90 seconds, a cannon minion spawns. If you have control of the lane, you want to recall when a cannon wave is coming in, okay? You shove the 6 minions, and then you recall when a cannon minion is coming. Because you recall, your opponent now sees the wave in front of them, and they either match your recall, and then they're late, they're just behind you at all times. I mean, they're going to be behind you regardless, but they're going to be behind you. So they either last hit the wave that you shoved into their turret, which didn't have a cannon in them, and then they match your recall, they hope to buy as many items as you. Or, they have a BF sword almost and they need to kill the next wave, so, the opposing Lucian or the opposing Azir or whatever then attacks and destroys the cannon wave. But cannon minions are so tanky, they basically take twice as long to clear as the entire rest of the wave, because you can't AoE them, they have so much health, they take a long time to kill, and life is pain. But if you have a dematerializer, you go, ha ha ha, you shove the cannon wave, I don't care. You dematerialize the cannon, right? You shove right before a cannon wave, ha ha ha. You dematerialize the cannon, you shove the wave like normal, and then you get a recall. Okay, so you got to recall on the exact same amount of time as your opponent, and there's a wave at their turret, and you got to shove the wave on time. Now they still come out in a pretty decent spot because of everything else that's about this, but it's somewhat meaningful. What this also helps with is as you dematerialize the cannons, because you gain 4% bonus damage to that type of minion for the rest of the game, you are now better at last hitting cannons in the future, which might not ever, but could. Let's say on average, 1/2 a cannon per game. I have no idea if that's true. You'll get a last hit that you would have missed because the last hitting breakpoint helps you. Maybe never, but it can. What's also nice is I keep talking about Singed because Singed is a quirky champion and I like playing Singed. Singed is the champion where he likes to wave clear, but cannons are annoying because he AoEs the whole wave. I mean, Echo's the same boat, right? Echo wants to wave clear at a certain amount of AP. He one-shots casters, Q +1 auto attack, one-shots melees, and then there's a freaking cannon minion in the way. And he phase charges it, E, whatever it's called, I don't remember anymore. Who cares? I played him literally 2 hours ago. I forgot the name of the skill. He hits E, phase dive. He phase dives, knocks the cannon minion, finally it dies. Okay, great. But if he can dematerialize it, either just when he wants to wave clear, or simply does it because, stacks it up because now he has the damage percentage on it, and he's up to, 7% bonus damage to cannons. Well, now they die 7% faster, and the wave clear's better. Now, that's not substantial. I think these numbers could go up to make it more enticing as a wave clear tool. I think that's reasonable. But those are the kind of situations you get yourself in, right? You dematerialize one of each minion, and then you dematerialize, 3 more cannons, and now you do 4% bonus damage against all minions forever, and you do 7% bonus damage against cannons for the rest of the game, and this helps you wave clear, and it does, right? It gives you some wave clear power, and again, this only matters if it reaches a breakpoint for you, and if you're like Static Shiv Sivir, nothing matters because everything gets one shot. If you're playing Azir, it probably doesn't matter, but I don't know. If you're playing Echo and you're not behind, it doesn't matter because the melees in range get killed anyway. But I think the use of this is it is actual gold in your pocket in bad lanes, and then it helps your last hitting from then on. And I think that's okay. I think that's enough to be pretty, not the same, but reasonably close to Magical Footwear in the sense that, yes, this is literally 350 gold and then another 120 worth of stats. This is literally 270 gold and some wave clear tools. So if you are not penalized by the can't buy boots, then this is just a mathematically better option than Dematerializer. Futures Market is, I think, debatable across these, right? But they all do essentially similar things. They all cheat your gold forward by 300-ish. It's just that this one has an actual drawback. which is why I think it's slightly overrated, though still very strong. And I know I spent like 15 minutes talking about this tier, but these are the zany runes, okay? These are the ones that take a while. Magical Footwear, honestly, great a lot of the time. The final slot in the Insight tree, Cosmic Insight, 5% CDR to your base cooldown reduction, your max cooldown reduction, your summon spells, and your items. Approach Velocity is gain move speed towards allied champions that are impaired or enemies that you impair. And Celestial Body, 100 health, but 10% less damage to champions and monsters until 10 minutes. So we're going to start with Celestial Body. It's the easiest to talk about. 100 health permanently is actually a lot of health. It really is. Like, imagine you went Inspiration Resolve and you just gained 245 HP. That is a lot of HP. And you got your armor rune in there from the Resolve tree. Like, it is a meaningful amount of health. It is. Right now, I don't know if there is an optimal user on this. Right before this video, I spot checked 3 different supports. I think it was Alistair, Sona, and Nami or something like that. And for none of the 3 was Celestial Body best in slot. The statistics were kind of low. It was like a 2% pick rate. But in all cases, Cosmic Insight was a higher win rate than Celestial Body. So, though 100 health is nice, it seems that 5 CDR is just as nice, and the non-drawback seems to be worth it. Seems to be the case. Now, again, this still makes sense on champions such as Soraka, and it pains me to say it, but kind of Sona. If you're in a non-poke lane in Sona, like if you're not going to push them out of lane, because champions who need health need health. Like if you are going to go, Guardian, like if you're going to go Guardian and, pick up your 5 armor at level 1 in the Resolve path, and then you get Celestial Body over here, and you've got your 230 bonus HP, and you've got your 5 armor, and you've got those shieldings, the extra shields, and the shields scale up bonus HP, and there's another 15 points in the shield, and that's really nice. Like, I don't think Celestial Body really is, like, wrong, but statistically, Cosmic Insight is outperforming it. I also do think that the minus 10% damage to champions and monsters is overstated in its severity of its weakness. If you think about how your actual landing phase goes one-on-one in the mid lane, certainly, yes, you are you are the largest individual contributor of damage in the lane. But think about any trade you ever get into, right? Okay, Malphite versus Aurelia, fight. When you fight, you pull minion aggro. And the minions are doing like 80 DP. Okay, 80 is probably too high. 50, 40, something like that DPS. They're doing almost as much damage as you, the champion. So when it says you do 10% less damage to champions and monsters, if you're in an all-in, really your side is only doing like 6% less damage because your minions are helping you and they're not affected. Your last hitting is not affected. But in all cases, you have 100 more health. Like if you're playing Maokai, yeah, your trades don't do as much damage, but do you really care? Do you really care? Because at the same time, your grasp does 4 more damage and you heal for 2 more health. It's not a lot, keep in mind. It's not. But as soon as 10 minutes rolls around, you just keep the health. And it's not as bad as I think people are making it out to be. It's really, really, really unpicked. And I actually looked for statistics on like mid laners, and it wasn't being picked enough to have a sample that was reliable to use. So I actually don't know its real comparison to things like Cosmic Insight or Approach Velocity, but I think Celestial Body is getting a bad rap. But that said, again, I can't find an actual great user for it, so maybe I'm just, blowing smoke for nothing. I do want to point out, though, that it is not the worst rune in the game. Like, yeah, it might not be as good as Cosmic Insight, but it can be better than going, like, Ravenous Hunter on the wrong kind of champion. It's just, it fights against a pretty good rune in this. Okay, Cosmic Insight, of course, pretty standard. You don't have to go 40 CDR for this to be good. It's fine. It's 5 CDR at level 1, which is great. If you get to 40 CDR, great. Now you're at 45 CDR. That's cool too. But Cosmic Insight is just solid on its own. And it's just like a grab bag of like generally good stats. Like it's the celerity of the inspiration tree. All right, Celerity is like, here's some move speed, here's some bonus damage. It's on all the time. Have fun. Enjoy League of Legends. You literally have to you never have to think about it again. This is good. Like Cosmic Insight is just a solid rune. Realistically, like, because of how much people love Magical Footwear, and honestly, I think Perfect Timing is a really good rune as well. Like, there are 3 easily picked runes in Inspiration at all times. Again, Magical Footwear, not always amazing and super sexy, because, again, it has the drawback, but right now it wins a lot on a lot of champions, but it's really easy just to go Footwear Perfect Timing or Footwear Cosmic Insight, or even Perfect Timing Cosmic Insight, as long as you're gangster enough to use your Perfect Timing correctly. And if you do, by the way, then you get, it's either 20 or like 19-ish% cooldown reduction on your Zonias and whatnot, because this item CDR stacks with that item CDR. For those who saw the YouTube video that came up a couple days ago with the 10 Zerat portals, where everyone gets Cosmic Insight and they go in the Domination tree and get more item CDR, like, yes, you can get really insane item cooldowns. I mean, realistically, if you really want to go Inspiration Domination and actually get this rune for your like 40% or whatever item CDR plus 5% item CDR plus 15% item CDR, I mean, you could, I guess, to have just insanely trolly Zonia's cooldowns. I don't know if it's ever going to be a build, but it'd be hilarious if it is. And keep in mind that if we run down this idea train for a second, a champion like Fizz, almost always the Zonia's duration is long enough to get Playful Trickster back up from cooldown. So, I mean, theoretically, there's a world where Fizz, like, Playful Tricksters, Zonia's, Playful Tricksters runs away a little bit, and then Zonia's again, like, 40 seconds later, maybe less than that. Okay, it's kind of pipe dream, I realize that, but, you know, theoretically, that's, like, almost a possibility. Honestly, none of the pipe dreams matter for Cosmic Insight. None of the pipe dreams really, really matter. Okay, yes, again, there's some synergy, right? It's nice alongside Perfect Timing. It's nice alongside Unsealed Spellbook for the 25 CDR into the 5 CDR here for Summoner Spells. Again, the active item CDR multiplies this active item CDR for your other active items. Like if you are a big Proto Belt user, maybe you can get off 2 in a team fight. I'm almost certain this does not affect items like Lichbane and Sheen. If they did, they'd be almost auto-includes for champions who are big Lichbane users, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Again, this has, I think, really solid synergy alongside Redemption users and Locket users and Righteous Glory users. It's really easy to say, you know, I'm playing Maokai with Righteous Glory. We're going Magical Footwear, Cosmic Insight. Let's go play League of Legends. My Righteous Glory is on a really short cooldown now. And okay, maybe you don't really want to be Domination primary when you're playing that champion, playing a Maokai, but, you know, who knows? Possibilities abound. I think definitely Inspiration is a really good splash for a lot of champions because I think basically to me what it's going to come down to is once Celerity gets nerfed and Celerity is no longer overpowered, you don't have to automatically go Sorcery Secondary to grab Celerity and then Gathering Storm or Scorch most of the time. I will be going a lot of Inspiration Secondary for free boots and either Cosmic Insight or Perfect Timing. Cosmic Insight, again, just generically strong. It really does work on basically anyone. If you really just want to go into Inspiration to grab Perfect Timing, Cosmic Insight is a no drawback, high power rune. It's just very solid, very good. One more we're going to talk about. I know I started bouncing around a lot, but that's kind of what happens with me. I get scatterbrained sometimes. Approach velocity is actually really nice, and I think it's so easily overlooked because people give Inspiration the least mind share. It's the last one on the list. You think about Domination with all the stats it gives you, all the power. I mean, Eyeball Collector is one of the most commonly picked runes in the game because it's just 30 free ability power, which is an insane amount of numbers. So it's really easy to look at 600 gold Eyeball Collector, done, which is also getting nerfed at some point, I'm pretty sure. Approach velocity, I actually looked at this. It's really funny. So, as I talked about before, Celerity is overpowered. So every marksman, basically, who's an auto attacker, is going to press the attack. They're getting Triumph, they're getting Coup de Grace, and they're getting Legend Alacrity. And then because Celerity is overpowered, they're all going Sorcery Secondary for Celerity and a Gathering Storm. And that's like every marksman page ever. Pretty much all of them. Ash's second best rune setup behind OP Celerity is Approach Velocity. Because Ash slows things all the time. And she gains 10% move speed toward those champions. Turns out that happens a lot. Okay, again, the range is 1,000. You can't reach your cross-map arrows, but you gain 1,000 range towards enemies that you crowd control. This works with Jin Traps. This works with Misfortune E. This works with Darius Apprehend and Darius's W, which is a slow. This works with, quite obviously, Glacial Augment, which is a slow. This works with Nautilus E to catch back up to the target. This works with Singed Goop. Now, the move speed is only 10%, right? So it's worth like 38 move speed. It's worth the same move speed that boots give you when they turn on here. But what's nice is this is synergistic. This is synergistic. Certainly, as we talked about before, Celerity is probably overpowered. But let's think about let's actually you know, make an example page, right? We're gonna go sorcery. We're gonna go, I don't know, phase rush or airy. Who cares? Okay, we're gonna grab some random thing. We're gonna grab celerity. I don't care what this is. We're gonna go inspiration. We're gonna get free boots. We're gonna get approach velocity. Okay, we have a ton of movement speed now. I mean, almost every single rune we picked gives us movement speed. That's insane. Like, at a certain point, it's just enough move speed that it's bonkers. Right? Singed Goop, yeah, it's only 10 move speed, 10% move speed for Singed. It's only 10% move speed with your 14 move speed, with your 10 bonus move speed, with your really cheap boots too, because they only cost you 750 gold, 750 total gold to buy Merc Treads that give you 55 move speed. 10% more here, 4% more here. If I'm in the river, 25 more move speed here. Like, it's at a certain point, you can just stack insane amounts of movement speed. And again, any Frozen Mallet user, you talk about champions like Gnar with their Boomerang, any, again, going back to an Inspiration Primary, right? Any Glacial Augment user, if you use Exhaust, if you're playing Braum, if you're playing Soraka and you land a Q, I mean, there are really a lot of users here. And I do think approach velocity is really strong. It also works, again, towards teammates that have been CC'd, which just happens a lot in general. It just happens a lot of the time. Like, this is just, in almost every team fight, almost all the time, 10% bonus movement speed. That's just good. It's just 10% move speed, like, almost all the time. Again, really frequently. So I think also a very good rune in its own right. And you don't have to be someone who applies CC, although almost every champion of the game does that. But, ooh, here's a good example. Mordekaiser buys Riley's Crystal Scepter. All right, I ulted someone. I now have 10% move speed for the entire team fight. Forever, because the ult lasts like 15 seconds. And then anything my Ghost hits and anything my W hits gains move speed. Oh, my teammate who frontline got slowed, I gain move speed towards him. I don't think the move speed stacks. I don't think it goes like 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 per champion. I could be wrong. I don't think it stacks, though. I think this would be a stronger rune if it stacked, and probably overpowered if it stacked. But it's just like, it's just 10% move speed in like every fight ever. Cassiopeia W someone, buys a Riley's, 10% move speed for the entire team fight. That's so much move speed. It's so hard to get in combat move speed, right? It's worth, again, like 38 move speed just on all the time. I think this is super underrated, especially, again, if you're planning on getting, if you basically you're in a situation where it's like, man, I really want to gain move speed more often, plus 10, plus 10%, done. Great. Super sick for in-combat mobility. Inspiration path, I think as soon as Celerity gets nerfed, I'm running Inspiration secondary on practically everyone. I think these are just incredibly useful, And, you know, if I don't want to run that, I can run Magical Stopwatch. These are great. These are really, really, really great. I love this path. I think it's super interesting. I think Materializer is probably slightly weak, and I think Futures Market needs UI buffs to be more interesting. But what's funny is after the UI buffs, it's just as good as Materializer, so maybe I'm just like blowing smoke for nothing. But basically, Footwear is the best unless you are getting penalized by not buying boots. And sometimes you are, but statistically, it doesn't seem to matter on the average case. That's it for this video. It was a full hour long because I ranted a lot about the fun things that Inspiration does, and I think that's kind of fitting because this is a zany-ass path. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.